Okay, feel like you procrastinate too much, you can never get jump-started on your work? Well, you aren't alone.
Dr. Andrea Bonnier is a licensed clinical psychologist. She's here with some simple tips that you can follow to stop procrastinating. Get moving, right, Andrea? Ideally.
We'll see.
Well, from time to time, I think we can all, we all get stuck. Right?
Yes, and there are also people who chronically procrastinate as well, and they, I was going to prepare a report on them, but I sort of put it off, and I used to have major problems procrastinating, honestly, when I was in college, and I think at some point I needed that pressure, I needed that stimulation of, now I'm really under the gun. I think a lot of people are like that. The problem is, when you work that way all the time, it really starts to affect your mental health, I think.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we get better at dealing with it as we age, because we know there's going to be consequences, right?
That is true. That is true. And a lot of times I think what's behind it, sometimes perfectionists are some of the biggest procrastinators, because they think, I have to do this perfectly, and that's scary. So they don't even want to start the task because it's so overwhelming. They think if they start it and they screw up, then it's not going to go well. And so oftentimes people I work with that have the biggest procrastinating problems are perfectionists, and it really brings them down at work, and then they stall, and the longer it goes on, the guiltier they feel, and then people are coming at them from all sides. Get this done, get this done. It can be a really tricky situation.
Do you think procrastination can be inherited in any way? If your parents had it, if it's somebody you're close to, if that was your example, do you think you can pick it up?
Absolutely. We learn by what we have witnessed growing up, and I think a lot of times if our parents were major procrastinators, we learn that that's just how you do things. Or, something's kind of on the front burner, let's shove it to the back burner. And it's gotten worse, I think, in this age of email. I mean, any given hour, you receive so much email. I'm not even talking just about spam, but just random stuff that's kind of like, I'll deal with that later. So we're used to sort of being inundated with stuff, and we're used to having to take the task to sort of just shove it away. But the problem is when the stuff builds up, I see a lot of people who it's really on their mind. It turns into this nervous, anxious kind of thing, and they always feel like stuff is hanging over their head.
It's like that dark cloud following
Exactly.
you. You know it's out there, but you're trying to ignore.
Yes.
It could be anything then, right? I mean,
absolutely. Housework, work, any kind of tasks, and then they pile up, and you hear people just start to get into paralysis. At some point, it's like, organizing that garage is just, it's such a huge task. I can't even spend 5 minutes thinking about it because it's so anxiety.
Well, how do you even begin? You've probably seen people with this issue. I've talked to you about this, and what do you start with to even tackle it?
Yeah, you've got to start first with just breaking it down into small tasks. Any huge thing, I don't care whether it's a dissertation or raising a child, whatever, it can be broken down into a series of small tasks. And that's the first step, because so many times people view something as this big blob. I've got to knock off this entire big blob of stuff to do. And in reality, the first part of that blob, you have to study for an exam, is actually taking the plastic off the book you just bought. And, that's literally the first step. I work with college students. You bought the textbook, take the plastic off and call me tomorrow. I mean, seriously.
Gotta open
I might have
up.
been one of those students once, honestly. But, and so that's the first step, is just being able to conceptualize things into smaller tasks. But I'll tell you what usually works, and it's very helpful, is for that first step, we do something called the 5-minute rule, which is allow yourself, or actually enforce yourself, I'm going to work on this for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to force myself to stop. Now, 5 minutes isn't enough to get virtually anything done, but for huge procrastinators, it gets over that first hump of opening the file, maybe writing the first sentence on the paper, whatever it is, because for so many people, it's the actual process, the idea of starting, rather than the work itself. The starting is so huge. So you tell them, work on it for 5 minutes, and then you must stop. And what that often does is it gets the ball rolling. After 5 minutes, which actually is longer than you think, then they're kind of like,
maybe
my
they
juices
see they
are
can do
flowing.
more, right?
Yes, and they actually want to keep going. But if you stop then the next time you pick it up, it's a good place to get right back into it. Whereas oftentimes we stop when we're exhausted, we've reached a wall, and then we don't want to get back into a task because, we felt like we were at a real brick wall at that point.
Yeah, that makes sense. You were talking about conceptualizing the task at hand. Does it ever help to sort of write a list? of all of the
absolutely.
steps that you have to do to complete the task?
Yeah. Now, sometimes people hide behind lists. I know there are those people who they run their lives by lists, nothing ever gets crossed off, and it's sort of this, tightened kind of hold on reality.
You
trying to
end up making lists. You end up making lists for lists.
The lists of lists. I had a list of those ones, and it was like, this is a little out of control. I think when you actually use the list and you make the items small enough that you're continuing to make progress and cross them off, that can be good. Other people get so set on, I'm going to organize, and then the list making is a 2-hour endeavor, and nothing's ever getting crossed off.
Right. I love to cross things off.
Oh, it's so satisfying. Sometimes at the end of the day,
done.
I'll add stuff if I've had a particularly unproductive day. At the end of the day, you can write something in. Took shower. All right. You add it in. It helps.
To make yourself feel productive, right?
I didn't get any of the meaningful stuff done, but hey, I did bring my mail inside. Take mail inside.
Welcome today.
Oh, that's great.
Because it's about feeling like your progress, and then progress begets progress. So it's really actually psychologically meaningful to say, hey, I did something. Maybe now I'll get the ball rolling, and that can really help.
It's all about the first step.
It is. It very much is.
I have a niece who got stuck writing papers at college, and her mother was offering to help, but she still was stuck. She wouldn't take the help, and then somebody was telling her, don't start with the first paragraph. Start with something in the middle.
Yeah.
Does that ever work?
Yeah, it's the same principle. This notion of people put so much emphasis on, they've got so many mental demons about the beginning of a big task. But if you just say, I'm going to just start in the middle, or I'm going to write something that's going to be cruddy, but I'm going to revise it 10 times, that takes some of the pressure off. And it does help, because we put so much pressure on ourselves. I have to create this perfect piece. No, just say, I'm going to write something stinky, and I'll revise later. Procrastinate the revision, but at least get something on the page for now.
Something done.
Yeah, good tips. All right, thanks for showing us how to not procrastinate, and we'll work on it.
I'm going to try to work on it too, honestly.
Dr. Andrea Bonnier, good to see you.
Thanks, Andrea.